Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Rabbish. Rabbish looks a bit of a pacifist druid covered in amulets, but in all truth all the little objects he carries around with him are more like souvenirs from his adventures. Because of his appearance he's usually underestimated as a warrior, but that's something he uses in his favor. And so here we have the newest and latest light legendary monster. I gotta say I'm a huge fan of the monster design, and I also gotta say this monster tricked me. When I saw his monster design, when I saw that dagger in his hand, I was thinking, oh cool, we finally have ourselves another light attacker. And then that was even reinforced with the monster description, saying he's underestimated as a warrior, but that's something he uses in his favor. I'm like, yes, an attacker. But that's actually not the case. He's actually a deny monster, and a really good one at that. But I'm skipping ahead, so anyhow, as I already mentioned, this monster is a light legendary monster, and currently there's 32 of them. And then this monster is the newest monster to be added into the Superheroes book, which I think is great because there's not that many monsters in that book. And then he's also part of the Good Legions book, which is currently the home to 71 legendary monsters, so there's a lot of competition there. And anyhow, with that said, let's get into his stats. He has a power of 3267, which is really low. It actually puts him in 20th place, tied with Ogma for light legendary monsters. Now the good thing is that his power is irrelevant because, as I mentioned already, he's not an attacker, he's a deny monster. As for his life, it's 29,858, which puts him in 14th place, so he's right about average for light legendary monsters. And then as for his speed, he has the amazing speed of 3498, which puts him in 4th place, tied with LK9 for light legendary monsters. The only monsters that are actually faster than Rabbish are Cassia, Lalau, and the nemesis monster Lum the Magical Matriarch. Now of those monsters I just mentioned, the only other denier is really Lum the Magical Matriarch, and she's a nemesis monster. And then of course LK9, he's also a denier. So when we exclude Lum, this makes Rabbish a contender for the top light legendary monster. So I'm gonna be really curious to hear what you guys have to say about LK9 versus Rabbish, who's the better deny monster. As for the trait, Rabbish has Harden, which makes it so all status effects have a 20% less accuracy against it, and you guys have probably heard me say this multiple times. I personally believe this is the best trait to have now in the game, with everything that's been released, with Mega Freeze, Mega Stun, Total Blind, all these obscure special effects, and then they're adding even more. This monster, for example, a little spoiler alert, he has a skill that applies stun twice. So, for example, even if stun misses, there's another chance for it to land. And you know, we've seen a similar version of that with like Hihaku, who can do freeze and possession, or even like with Bonnie Bark, who can do, I think, total blind and possession. So having a trait that gives you immunity to all sorts of things, that is really useful. And then one huge advantage that I personally believe this monster has are the relics. It can hold an amulet relic and an essence relic. And when you take a look at the available essence you can put on this monster, there are some really great ones. A lot that have to do with recovering life or recovering life for your team. Or if you're fortunate enough to have the diamond essence, this is the one that revives your monster when they die. This actually makes it pretty difficult to actually eliminate a Rabbish, especially when we consider the fact that this monster can also hold the amulet relic, which again includes a lot of effects that heal your life. For example, the very basic bronze relic, the healing amulet, when this relic is fully leveled, it can heal your monster by up to 21,000 points, which is incredible for a bronze relic that anyone can pretty much obtain. So looking back at this monster, although he had an average life for light legendary monsters, the fact that he can hold the essence and the amulet relic, combined with his hardened trait, combined with how crazy fast he is, this is looking to be a really great monster. And with that said, let's get into analyzing his skills, starting off with his ultimate skill, Bad Fur Day. Deals very heavy special damage to one enemy, applies possession to all enemies. So this skill deals 50 special damage to a single enemy, which honestly is rather irrelevant considering he's not that powerful, his power stat being low once again. But what's cool about this, it's an AoE possession, which isn't anything too fancy, but considering he's a denier, I'm really glad they went with a deny ultimate and not some sort of damage ultimate. So props to Rabbish there. Skills group 1 in my opinion has nothing worth mentioning, so on to skills group 2 we go. And so the first skill we have in skills group 2 is Solar Strike. Deals moderate light damage to an enemy, applies total blind to an enemy, requires cooldown. 40 light based damage to a single enemy monster, 19 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown, and it applies total blind. And total blind reduces the accuracy of the enemy monster by 100%, which is basically a deny skill. It's one of the best deny skills, right? Because no matter what the enemy does, it's going to be missing. The attack is going to miss, you're going to take no damage, and the effect is going to miss. So you're not going to get hit with any deny skill, any negative effect, any torture status effect. Total blind is just fantastic, especially because monsters are immune to stun, to freeze, to all these effects, but no monster in the game is currently immune to total blind. And so it goes without saying this is a must-have skill for this monster. The next skill we have in skills group 2 is Dazzling Strike. Deals heavy light damage to one enemy, applies stun to one enemy, requires cooldown. 45 light based damage to a single enemy monster, 26 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown, and it's just your average stun skill. And now in my personal opinion, it's really up to you whether or not you want to run the skill. You honestly don't really need it. I think there's 3 must-have skills for this monster, and then the 4th skill you're able to choose whatever you want, and I'm not going to be recommending a single stun just because you have other forms of denial, but at the end of the day, if you want an extra deny skill instead of a more supportive skill, you can totally go for that. As for the next skill in skill group 2, we have All Together Now. Deals moderate special damage to one enemy, applies energy regeneration to all allies, requires cooldown. 40 special base damage to a single enemy monster, 22 stamina cost, 1 turn cooldown, and your whole team gets stamina regeneration. Now this skill is actually pretty good. Your whole team gets energy regeneration, meaning you're never going to have to recharge with any of your monsters, and it only has a 1 turn cooldown. So realistically, if a battle was to go on forever, your monsters would always have energy regeneration with them. They would literally never have to recharge. But with that being said, I don't think this skill is also worth running, because in skill group 3 he has actually an immediate stamina regeneration skill, which even though it has a higher cooldown, like a 4 turn cooldown, I think it's a lot better, because immediate recovery of your stamina, in my personal opinion, is better than stamina regeneration. Just because it's very possible that maybe the enemy monster gets the next turn in, and then that enemy monster can remove positive effects, which means your ally loses your stamina regen. So when your ally actually gets a turn in, well, the stamina regen was removed, so then they're not going to be able to recover, and then you'd have to waste your turn recharging. But at the same time, I'm willing to admit that the same can be said for an immediate stamina regen. For example, if you recover your monster's stamina by like 50%, maybe in the next turn is an enemy monster that can stamina drain, and then they lose their stamina, and then it would have been more beneficial if they actually had stamina regeneration. And so at the end of the day, it pretty much just comes down to preference. If you prefer All Together Now over the skill I'm going to be recommending, then by all means go for it. With that said, we can jump into skills group 3, Go to the Light. Deals moderate light damage to all enemies, applies total blind to all enemies, requires cooldown. 35 light based damage to all of the enemy monsters, 22 stamina cost, 3 turn cooldown, and it applies total blind to all of the enemy monsters. And it goes without saying, this is your must-have skill, this is your AoE deny skill, and combined with this monster's fast, incredible speed of 3498, this is what makes this monster amazing, and this is what makes this monster a contender for the top light legendary deny spot. So let me know in the comments below, who do you think is the best light denier? Is it Rabbish or is it L-Canine? Between those two, I'm really curious what you guys have to say. They both have the exact same speed. L-Canine has an advantage in the trait. He has the tough trait, which is normally reserved for the generals, so there's a 35% chance he can't get hit with negative effects. But then in terms of denial, they both go different routes. So look over the monsters and decide which one is better, because I would really like to hear your guys' opinion. But again, it goes without saying, you have to run the Go to the Light. And as for the next skill we have in skill group 3, this one is really interesting. Double Dazzling Strike. Deals heavy light damage to one enemy, applies 2 stuns at a time to one enemy, requires cooldown. And so that's something we've never really seen. Anyhow, this skill deals 50 light based damage to a single enemy monster, 33 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown. And so this skill applies stun twice to the same enemy monster. It doesn't apply stun to 2 separate monsters, and it's not a mega stun. It won't stun the enemy monster for 2 turns, but what it does is, there's 2 chances to stun the enemy monster. And the reason this is good is because with so many monsters having the hardened trait, with the generals having tough, with other monsters, the nemesis monsters especially, having like a 30% chance to not get hit with a negative effect or a 25% chance, or the monsters having bulwark. Some nemesis monsters have bulwark, the VIP monsters have bulwark, and so trying to immobilize some enemy monsters, that becomes rather difficult. But with Rabbish, you essentially get 2 chances. If the first stun doesn't work, maybe the second stun will work, which is really darn amazing. And I foresee that more and more monsters are going to start having this. I think more and more we're going to be seeing skills that apply freeze twice to a single enemy monster, or eventually we're going to get AoE versions of this skill, which is really great. But Rabbish is the first monster to have a same deny effect, a 2-in-1 essentially, but the same deny effect in a singular skill, which is really interesting, and you should definitely run this skill. And then as for the last skill, we have Buckthorn's Blessing. Gives 50% of stamina to all allies, requires cooldown. This skill is for all of your allies. It costs no stamina, it has a 4 turn cooldown, and so this is a skill I'm going to be recommending over All Together Now and over Dazzling Strike. But again, it's completely down to preference. If you prefer having another single stun skill, if you prefer having the stamina regeneration skill, by all means go for it. But the reason I prefer this skill over the other 2 skills is because, first of all, this skill counters any monster that can do stamina drain. 100% stamina drain, 50% stamina drain, any kind of stamina drain. Furthermore, it'll also counter monsters that have relics that also stamina drain, and there are quite a bit of those that can do that. There's monsters that can do bleeding and drain your stamina. There's monsters that can do freeze and drain your stamina. So I think having a skill like this is really useful, especially because this skill costs no stamina, so you could always use it. And I mean, hey, when you run out of stamina, what do you have to do? You have to click the charge button, and you use up your turn recharging. Well, thanks to this skill, it's not just your Rabbish recharging, it's all of your monsters recharging. They all get their stamina back, which I think is just fantastic. So my personal recommendation, well, I guess I'll start with the 3 must-have skills in my opinion. Solar Strike from Skills Group 2, Go to the Light, and Double Dazzling Strike. As for the 4th and final skill, it's really up to you between Dazzling Strike, All Together Now, and Buckthorn's Blessing, with my personal preference being Buckthorn's Blessing. And as for runes for this monster, it's always really easy with the Denier. You want to go 3 speed runes, your best speed runes, put them on this monster. He's one of the fastest light legendary monsters. You definitely want him having 3 speed runes. You want him to go first, you want him to total blind, or maybe you want a single double stun an enemy monster if they're a main threat. maybe you want to go with the 95% accuracy single total blind. But regardless, fantastic monster. Definitely one of the better monsters. Great relics, great speed stat, great life stat, great trait, great monster design. And with that being said, that is going to conclude this analysis. And now is the part where I want to hear from all of you guys. What do you guys think about this monster? How do you think he compares to the other monsters in the light category, in the superheroes book, in the good legions book? Do you think he's a contender for the top spot in every single book and in his own element? Or do you think there are better monsters? And as I've been alluding to multiple times, how do you think this monster compares to Alkanine? Is Alkanine the top light legendary monster? Or is Rabbish the top light legendary monster? Or do you think there's a different monster that's even better than those two? Whatever thoughts may be going through your guys' head, please let me know in the comments below. I am really looking forward to hear what you guys have to say. And I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you all next time.